Hey, hello again. Well, in that Russian Butte picnic area on the Middle Fork Snoqualmie River, it's a partly cloudy day, beautiful area. Nice view of the river here and Russian Butte up there, covered in clouds at the moment. We've had a string of really rainy, windy, cold weather here, so there's quite a bit of snow up there on the peak, which is what I was hoping for. I'm looking for any kind of interesting cloud and light effect on the snow on the peak up there, and then on the river here in the foreground. Just gonna set up and do an 11 by 14 inch oil painting of this scene. As the day progresses, I might paint this view as well. Well, I'll get set up. As always, thanks so much for joining me. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Here's my palette. I've got a little bit of artist turpentine here. This is Richeson's rectified turpentine. I've got a little liquid in here and a little Gamsol in here. After I get done with the turpentine wash, I'll put the cap on this and switch to Gamsol. Got ivory black, Rembrandt cold gray, titanium white, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, sap green, burnt umber, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, cad red, cad yellow, Windsor lemon, and yellow ochre. These are a mix of Rembrandt and Gamblin and Windsor and Newton colors. Those are affordable but high quality brands that I like. I especially like the Rembrandt. I love the way it comes out of the tube ready to paint. Beautiful warm butter, room temperature butter consistency. Makes it a joy to paint with. As usual, I'm going to start by coming up with the composition roughly on my iPhone. I think I'll go with a landscape, so horizontal composition on an 11 by 14 inch Gorilla Painter oil primed linen panel. I'll start by mixing the colors for the scene. It's overcast, it's spring, so the colors are kind of muted, but I tell you, here in person, the oranges and yellows are rich, especially the moss on the trees and the early growth on the deciduous trees. Really beautiful. So for the clouds, it's almost white. There's just a touch of a warm gray to the darker parts of the cloud, and the lighter parts of the cloud are just a slightly yellow white. And then the sky, when it peeks through, is a really rich ultramarine blue. So those will be pretty quick to mix. Basically just titanium white and touches of other colors for the clouds. For that background mountain up high, for I think that's Russian Butte, at the top of the mountain, again it's almost just a gray. There's a shift between cool and warm grays, and then the snow-covered trees up there are just faintly green. So those will be mostly titanium white again. I try to keep those really low chroma, really grayed out, and also really high value, almost as light, almost as high in value as the clouds. Just barely darker than the clouds. Then for the trees, the pine trees are beautiful, stately, old, gigantic things. The trunks are a warmish gray, brown. The boughs, the pine needles, shift between a cooler gray-green and a warmer gray-green. The rocks on the bank of the river on the far side there are just a touch warmer, just the same value as the clouds in the sky, but just a touch warmer, so I'll add just a little bit of Windsor lemon, maybe a little bit of yellow ochre to that. And then the river, I can see the bed of the river is a warm gray-green with some warmer and cooler rocks. The shadows under the rocks in the river are pretty warm. So lots of kind of muted tones. I'm going to mix up a few piles to try to match those colors. Hopefully the light continues to stay consistent. I'm kind of facing southwest right now, so the sun is eventually going to be over there in that quadrant of the sky, so it'll backlight the mountain. If the clouds clear, it might throw a little light on the face of the mountain, which I think would be beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and mix up the colors first and set those piles of color aside, and then I'll do the turpentine wash and go directly into painting onto the turpentine wash. Got some colors mixed up here. I've got a little bit of blue for the sky. I can invent some glimpses of the blue sky because it's all gone now. The clouds have rolled in and I'm actually getting rained on a little bit. You know, you can paint in oil in the rain or the snow if it's not coming down too hard. A little bit of water mixed in with your oil paint won't hurt anything. We've got some grays for the clouds, blue, more red, and more yellow. I can just kind of invent a pretty pattern there. And I actually mixed this blue when I saw some blue sky earlier. It was really intense blue, and I came down a little bit from that. I didn't go quite as intense as what I was seeing. I've got a set of grays here for that background mountain. Really dark down at the base. Not quite as dark as the trees, which is where I want it. This is one reason why I like to lay out my colors like this. I can judge value. So here I can see that this is slightly bluer, slightly lighter than the greens for the trees in front of the mountains that I mixed up, and that's what I want. That'll give that illusion of depth. It'll bring the trees in front of the mountain. So I've just got a set of different grays here. This is the darkest and the warmest. Then I've got almost as dark but bluer, a little lighter and bluer, a little lighter and greener. Now this is the green I'm seeing for the pine trees as they climb up the slopes. As they get higher, they get lighter in value, more covered in cloud. A little warmer gray for the rock, the exposed rock high up. A little lighter and a little more yellow. Now I can use these also for the mountain, the hills that are receding in the distance behind the main peak, and also just gray it out and lighten it up with some of the sky colors as well. A little lighter and more red here for some of the scrub in the distance, lighter and more yellow scrub in the distance, and this is a color for the moss on some of those deciduous trees in the distance. Here's the pine colors, some really vibrant orange for the moss on the deciduous trees across the bank. I've got a little bit of a warm dark for the trunks of those pine trees. For the trunks of the deciduous trees, I can use this highlight very brightest, lightest color. This is the rock on the riverbank. These two a little grayed out, a little more lavender, a little more yellow. These are some reflected light on the water, and I can also use the colors I mixed up for the sky for the reflected light in the water. This is the darkest colors for the water. Dark green, a little lighter green, a little more orange green. Those are all the tones I'm seeing in the water. This is a darker lavender for some of the scrubby growth across the river on the bank. And this is also for these two are for the scrubby growth on those trees that are just starting to sprout some leaves. I'll actually start with this little bristle brush and some turpentine and sketch the scene in those same colors that I'll use for the turpentine wash. A little bit of ultramarine blue for the sky, alizarin crimson for the mountains, Burnt sienna for the trees. Cad yellow for the river. Switch to my normal big bristle brush for the Turpentine Wash. For the Turpentine Wash, I'll go with ultramarine blue for the sky, really light value. I'll put a little bit down and then wipe most of it away. Alizarin crimson for the mountain and the mountains in the background. I'll add a little bit of that ultramarine blue to blue them out as they recede. For the pine trees, I'll go with burnt sienna. For the deciduous trees, I'll go with yellow ochre. And for the river, I'll go with cad yellow. Those are kind of the colors I'm seeing shining through the scene. If I squint and try to approximate what hue I'm seeing, that's what I come up with. For the riverbanks where it's real light, I'll just take the paintbrush with a little bit of turpentine added and wipe away the light of the panel and expose the light of the panel, and whatever is left on there will kind of tint it probably a little bit of yellow. Now as I'm doing this turpentine wash, I'm kind of letting the turpentine do what it wants, obliterating some of the edges that I put down. The sun has broken through, putting some light on the mountain up there, which is great. I can capture that now, wipe out some of the light of the turpentine wash to indicate the shape of the mountain up there, and also add in a little bit of dark to define the shape. That dark looks really dark on the panel. I'm going to have to lighten it up just a bit. Alright, there's the turpentine wash in now. I'm going to put the lid back on the turpentine and get the Gamsol out. I'm actually getting a little hail on me now, mixed with rain. I'll start with a large evergreen, rosemary evergreen brush, and just lay in the sky, and then just to proceed with painting in the colors I'm seeing. The cold is stiffen up the paint a little bit, so I'm just adding a little bit of Gamsol into my brush. Beautiful pattern in the sky right now. I'm going to start with the lightest colors. Actually dip into this highlight color a little bit and some pure white as well, just to capture these lightest points in the sky that I'm seeing right at the moment. Beautiful. It's very tempting not to paint on a partly cloudy day and there's a chance of rain or hail, but sometimes you can just get the most beautiful light effects. Really inspiring light effects on these partly cloudy days. I mean, who doesn't love being outside painting in a hailstorm? You don't get to do that very often. Here's where the Turpentine Wash is helping me. It's kind of, there's an abstract pattern here that I'm kind of responding to as well as what I'm seeing in the sky, which is always a lot of fun. This is a warmer gray as the sky is coming toward me. The shadow, the underside of the clouds are warmer than in the distance. They're bluer back here. But I can add just a little bit of this bluer gray as well here for visual interest. I'm going to paint over the edge of the mountain a little bit. I can cut back into that to give a nice soft edge. I can leave it to suggest that the clouds are rolling over the top of the hill like I'm seeing them do here. As long as I leave a nice soft edge, I can change it however I want back in the studio and harden up those edges if I want to. I don't have to actually resolve anything here. I can leave it all very abstract and rough and finish it just the way I want to in the studio. Alright, that looks pretty good for the sky. Now I'll pick up a different brush. Pick up another evergreen, slightly smaller, long flat, and map in the colors of the mountain, just gently and softly. Start with the lightest tones. I'll take another rosemary, a little smaller, and map in the subtle grays of the mountain. Start with the lighter values first. As I'm painting this background mountain, I'm leaving space for the foreground trees. So I'm kind of painting around where I think those trees will go. Painting over the edges so I can paint back into that background with the foreground trees. I'm stepping back every once in a while just to make sure things look balanced, look like the scene. take a natural bristled brush and start to paint the pine trees. I'll take a palette knife and draw in the trunk of the tree first, and then I'll take the brush and just dot in the boughs of the pine. Before I get all the way to the riverbank, I'll paint the river rock and the deciduous trees along the bank, and then bring the trees together. So here as I paint these trees, I'm just trying to react to the scene. Trying to keep my edges soft and abstract. By no means am I trying to paint each and every branch, each and every bough. I'm shifting the colors, shifting the temperature of the color within the value. So shifting it warmer, shifting it cooler without changing the value a whole lot. If I keep the value of the foreground pines darker than the value of the background mountain, it'll maintain that sense of depth. If I lose that though, like trying to put the deciduous trees in overlapping the mountain without that boundary layer of pine trees, it can become confused and lost real quick. Now some of these deciduous trees closer to me have richer chroma, so they can be a higher value. They can be the same value as the background mountain, but that higher chroma is going to bring them forward. So there's just some tricks you can use to try to keep that sense of depth, try to create that illusion of depth. I find that also focusing on this main pine tree, if I focus on that and paint the rest of the trees and the rest of the scene with my peripheral vision, that helps. It helps me to not get too caught up in trying to capture all the detail. So now I have those trees mostly in. I can go back in with just a little bit of the mountain color and touch up some of the open spots. It's okay if the underpainting shows through in some places, but where it's really bright and distracting, I'm going to touch those with a little bit of the mountain color and get rid of them. I got a little fly on there as well. Or a mosquito. I can take this clean, mostly clean, soft brush and knock down the edges as well. That'll help me later if I want to change the detail a little bit. Don't want to blend, I just want to knock the edges down. Alright, finally I'll just paint the river in, and then I think I'll be about done. I want the river to look like a flat plain. So here were the trees. When I was painting the trees, I was dragging down because I want to communicate the feeling of gravity, the weight of the branches. Here with the river, I want to communicate the flow of the river. So most of my brush strokes will be along this plane. A lot of it is going back and forth without blending too much. Look at the river, especially look at the river through my peripheral vision while I'm looking at the center of interest, this big tree, and picking out those predominant colors. A lot of orange right here where these trees are bright. In general, when you're painting water, the water is less than. So if this is dark, the reflection of this is going to be less dark. And maybe a little bit warmer. So as I put this in, I want to just compare. It's not a real distinct reflection, since the water's flowing. There should be a little difference. Where the river's not reflecting this tree. And even throw in some sky color, some cloud and sky color down here. And even a little bit of mountain color down here. It's fine if it looks a little messy here, plein air. You're not going to get a perfect painting. Usually when you're painting plein air, as long as you capture the color notes, you can clean it up back in the studio. The light has changed so much now with the scene, but the river has stayed pretty consistent. If I look at the mountain now, the mountain looks very different. I mentioned in an earlier video that I've been taking a little mentoring program from Scott Christensen, an excellent landscape painter. And one thing he mentions when painting water is that shadows are typically not as dark and warmer, and lights in reflected water are not as light and cooler. So I'm trying to keep that in mind as I paint here, but I'm also just trying to capture what I'm observing. So now I want to take a different brush, another rosemary evergreen, and map in some of the light of the rapids on top of these greens I put in. I just use the colors that I mixed up for the sky earlier and for the mountain, it adds a nice harmony to the scene. I'm not quite going as light as what I'm seeing now because the sun has come out. I don't want to get too finicky. The rapids closer to me should be bigger in scale than the rapids in the distance. If I want to thin it up, I can take the brush that I paint the green with and go back in around it and thin it down a little bit. Well, as you can see, the lights really change now. Mountain's backlit and the sun's come out. Well, here's where it ended up. It's pretty strongly backlit now. I hope you can see it. I like how it turned out. I like how abstract and soft all the edges in these trees are. It's a challenge to not try to capture all that detail. I also like how this distant mountain is receding and the top of the mountain is also being kind of covered by the clouds. Well, it's a beautiful place. Lovely day. A little bit of rain, a little bit of hail. It's one thing I really love about painting on location is you get to experience so much while you're out here. Got a few mosquito bites, which is surprising this early in the season. It's only mid-April. Well, I'll take it back to my studio, touch it up just a bit in the studio, and put it out on my website. I may decide to firm up this mountaintop a little bit more or make it recede even more into the cloud. I'm not quite sure yet. Beautiful lighting right now with the backlighting, top-down backlighting on the mountain. It's gorgeous. May have to do a larger version of that in the studio. As always, thanks so much for joining me. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit my website. I sell these little plein air pieces at a reasonable price because I consider them practice. It really makes me happy when someone likes my art enough that they want to hang it in their home. You can also sign up for my newsletter and stay up to date on my new work and shows and get a discount on original art and prints.